It's Mike from Here the Watchman, and today I'm excited to have a guest with us that's just a deep, deep researcher, but not just that. This man goes out and gets in the thick of where the demonic and where the things really happen out there, and has a fascinating story to tell us today about a couple of events that are going on and things that he's seen. Before we get into all that, I got to take care of some business here with everybody, and that is, Here the Watchman will be returning to Dallas, Texas, March 22nd through March 25th, 2018. And folks, this conference is going to be by far the most in-depth conference that we have produced yet, where we're going to actually train the remnant body spiritually for things to come. If you go to our website, www.hearthewatchman.com, you'll see the preliminary list of speakers. More amazing speakers are going to be added to that list, but not just that. We are going to have intensive workshops for you to attend there, where you can really get one-on-one with some of the teachers who will talk to you about what you need to do to prepare your family. So it's something you don't want to miss. You want to go online and get your tickets now. There's an early bird special that runs through November 15th, and you can also get a discounted rate of $99 at the hotel. It is at the same hotel that we've been at in the past, the Hilton DFW Lakes Executive Conference Center and Hotel, right there in DFW. Free shuttle to and from the airport, 24 hours a day, free, in your room. It's just the perfect place to host a gathering like this. And now is the time. So get your tickets. They're already selling like crazy. Some of you noticed on our YouTube channel that we did an interview with Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat, which is now up to 1.8 million views. And a lot of those people that are viewing what he had to say recently are already signing up for the conference. So don't delay, get busy, and get ready. So without further ado, I want to bring on Teichrib. Did I pronounce that right, Carl? I always butcher your last name.
Yes, you did, Mike. You nailed her.
And I just, Carl is a deep, deep researcher. I met him in North Las Vegas at Billy Crone's church, where he spoke at one of our smaller Hear the Watchman conferences. And we look forward to working with him in the future. Today, I want to bring him on to talk about the Burning Man event that he went to in Black Rock. And that's what I mean. He goes right into the thick of it. And we're also going to talk about another issue that's come up, which is a naked statue that's planned to be placed in the mall in Washington, D.C. And finally, we're going to talk about his new book, Game of Gods. Carl, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Carl, I'm just so impressed that you took the time to go down to Burning Man. And some people will say, oh, he went to Burning Man. Oh, but what went on in Burning Man? What did you see? And what do you think is going on out there?
Well, first of all, I do know some people have that reaction. Oh no, you went to Burning Man, or you went somewhere else. Understand, Mike, and your listeners need to know this. I've been to 35 or so major events that look to shape culture, look to shape society. That includes everything from attending way back in the day the United Nations Millennium Forum, being involved with going to World Federalist events, going to interfaith events such as the Parliament of the World Religions. Even back in the year 2000, I was at the United Religions Initiative Global Summit, transhumanist events, and the list goes on. And the reason I do this, Mike, is because the best form of research, at least from my perspective, is have boots on the ground. And I need to understand how culture is changing. And there is really no more important event in many respects in terms of being that sharp edge of the cultural spear than Burning Man and the Burning Man phenomena, because it's not just one event, but the fact that it has a global reach. And so this year, a friend and myself attended the event. We attended it both for research purposes, and we also attended it to try to interact with the people. We put up a sign at our camp, and the sign said, "Camp of the unknown God, which is taken out of Acts 17, where Paul goes to Mars Hill and, of course, sees all the monuments set up and sees one to an unknown God and said, hey, this God we proclaim to you. And so we try to emulate that and use basically the same tactic that Paul used, which was to understand the worldview, go to where they are, and then to interact on their turf, understanding their worldview. And so that's what we did, Mike.
I got to say, again, my hat's off to you for doing this, because a lot of times, you know, you'll hear people say, well, I don't want to go there because there's sin there. And I don't want to, and I'm not just talking about Burning Man, I'm talking about anywhere. I don't want to go there, there's sin there. I only want to go where the believers are. You know, well, you know, think about it. What if Jesus only went to where the believers were? Then what? You know, so, so when you were there and you were interacting with some of the people there, what did you find them to be like? What did you find their curiosity to really be?
Well, you know, and this is very, very important, because we have all kinds of conceptions of what type of people go. I mean, and I've even been guilty of this, saying, hey, you know, Burning Man, and it's a gathering of 70,000 hippies, blah, blah, blah. Wrong, wrong. It's your neighbors. It's your family members. It's your co-workers. It's the people that you know and interact with. They are adopted, you know, it's just simply an expression of the worldview already being accepted implicitly and explicitly by the society we live in today. So that's really, really important to understand. This is not a fringe development. It was fringe when it started, Mike. It really was. It had that, you know, it was the Wild West. It was Mad Max. It still carries elements of that. But realistically, this is a place where you see literally anybody and everybody, from Hollywood stars to tech gurus from San Francisco, to your niece running around, you know, or your nephew running around and participating. And number one, it's not a free-for-all. You just can't show up. You have to get a ticket, and that itself is difficult. And then there's a process. You've got to bring all your gear. You bring your food. You bring your water. You have to bring everything to survive for 8 days. And that means that there are no vendors. I mean, they do have an ice distribution site where you can pick up ice and where you can buy coffee, but that's it. The rest of it, you bring in yourself, and then you bring it out.
Interesting. And how many people attended this year?
About 70,000. So, I mean, it's 70,000. Think about that. It's like a city. I mean, it is it's one of Nevada's largest cities for that week. You know, Burning Man it's an urban site. 70,000 people. We had roughly 12-mile perimeter, and then you could extend that further out yet to incorporate things like the airport, which is an FAA temporary approved airport that had, I heard, roughly 800 flights coming and going. So about 400 flights altogether, but roughly 800 coming and going, because there's planes constantly leaving and coming. And on occasion, all of a sudden, you'd hear the roar of an F-18 as somebody from the Air Force, because there's Air Force bases not far away. I mean, this is Nevada. It's, you know, it's got all kinds of Air Force facilities. All of a sudden, they come screaming right over the top of the city, shoot up into the sky, do barrel rolls, wave their wings, and go. Which, I mean, yeah, that was pretty cool.
What do you think draws people to go to Burning Man?
Well, first of all, it's a place where people let go of inhibitions, where boundaries dissolve. It's a place where people go to party. It's a place where people go, as my neighbor who was right beside me said, this is an elderly, not elderly, man. John would probably punch me if I said elderly. He's a retired individual, and he says he's been going for 7 years just to come to get out of his skin. A place to kind of just let it all kind of hang out. So, and this is important, Mike. There really are 3 types of people. This is my take. 3 types of people who I discovered at Burning Man. One are just, you know, the majority who are there for the party. They're there for the carnival atmosphere. They're there to dance. They're there to bar hop. They're just there to let their hair down. And then there's another subset of people, and they're there for the sexual adventurism, because there's a lot of sexual activity. If you want to pursue that, it's there. And then the third type of people that I discovered are your tech gurus, your social engineers, those people involved in driving culture into a certain direction. And they're coming with a different reason altogether. Yeah, they're doing some partying, but really they're there networking. They're there talking about how to make Burning Man into something more acceptable, how to take the ethos of Burning Man, the ethics, the structure of Burning Man, what they call liquid democracy, and push that into a broader culture. So they have a very different motive and a very different sense of why they're there, compared to, let's say, you know, the guys who are camped right beside me, who are just simply coming to go dancing, to party, and just to get away from you know, their day-to-day grind.
Well, you know, Carl, it's interesting. There are a lot of people out there, especially within the Christian community, that view it as the decline of civilization. I mean, that this is like Sodom and Gomorrah, and that it's a satanic agenda which is tearing away at morality. How do you feel about that, and what would you say to those people?
Yes and no. It's just like any other large urban center. You will find all kinds of things. I mean, I don't have to go to Burning Man to find all kinds of degrading activities. I just need to go to my local city, and it's all there too. Or for that matter, the internet. It's all there. It's streaming into our homes. So I have to say yes and no. The real issue is not necessarily the party or all the rest. It's that worldview, the worldview that is implied all the way through from beginning to end. And the worldview is this: everything is one. We're all one. We're all together. Burning Man demonstrates this because you feel it. It's a felt sensation. And so, and there's some technical terms that go with it, but it's this worldview that everything is connected. Man, God, and nature are all essentially the same, which is different than the biblical worldview. And on that level, and in fact, when you peel everything away, that's really the issue. Not whether or not people are, you know, nude or naked, or if there's lewd acts. Yes, that's there. Absolutely. And it's also a reflection of the culture. It's a reflection of what people are doing already in their communities and what they're doing, you know, behind their closed doors. And honestly, I didn't see a lot of, I saw a fair amount of nudity, sure, but not a lot of lewdness. It was more implied than explicit. And from what I understand, a lot of that real raunchy stuff has now moved into the closed spaces of camps and domes, and taken out of the public eye. Frankly, because there's a lot of kids there now. I mean, there's even a kids area set up. And so from what I understand, a few years ago, the local sheriffs came in and said, look, you got little kids running around here already. If you want to do your orgies, you know, do it at the orgy dome or do it in your camps. You got kids here now. And so there's been a shift. And my friend Bob, who is an old burner who came with me, he used to go in the 1990s, he would be evangelizing. He came and spent the week with me. And he also said, you know, this is not the same burn. It's definitely lost that raunchier side. It's there, it's just more hidden. But the worldview, Mike, is there. The worldview, and that's what's so important. It is a worldview that is diametrically opposite of the Christian worldview. It is about mankind coming together. We're celebrating our oneness. Burning Man is about celebrating that essential core, that man, nature, and God are all the same, which of course is the antithesis of the biblical worldview.
That's very interesting. I think that I have heard other people talk about what you're saying, and I think it was Jay-Z. You know, the comment, do as thou wilt, you know, and is that kind of what the feeling is at Burning Man?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that certainly is there. There's no doubt about it. But even with that, they've put structures in place, and they've had to put structures in place because they've had, I mean, like when you take that philosophy, do what thou wilt, eventually things happen that get really, really ugly. And so things did happen already a few years ago where they had to put structures in place and try to more curtail some of that. But it definitely is there. There's a spiritual side to all of this beyond just the worldview. There are people who come to this fully believing that this is a spiritual, kind of a spiritual vortex, a place of religion, a place of spiritual connection. That really came through with the temple. The burning of the man, that was just a big party. The temple, however, totally different game. Everything was sacred, everything was solemn, everything was religious, it was ritualized, it was really oriented to this sense of an inner spiritual experience. And so it wasn't, you know, it wasn't just that temple. We had other temples scattered around the city, other shrines set up. So that was all there. But, you know, even standing in line at one place, I was waiting for, I think it was a cup of soup. And people were giving out cups of soup or giving out grilled cheese sandwiches, whatever. I was standing in line, I think it was for a cup of soup. And people ahead of me who would hold the pagan worldview were even talking about how the media always focuses on that sensationalist side without realizing what this place is really all about. And that hit me as I was way out in the desert one evening. I think it was about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I get a ding on my phone. Because cell service is hit and miss, and it comes up, there's an article, somebody sent me a private message with an article attached, 70,000 naked people having an orgy in the desert. And I stood there, and I'm like, in the midst of these 70,000 naked people having an orgy in the desert, and I'm going, where? You know? So, you know, I'm not downgrading the dangers. That's there. I'm not downgrading the spirituality of it. Golly, Mike, that is really there. I mean, just look at the where, what, when guide we got this year. I mean, the spirituality is powerful. But we also have to be honest. We can't bear false witness. We just can't say that this is one massive 70,000 gathering of people having a naked big orgy. Maybe a few hundred were. Yeah, no question. But so we have to be careful how we, and this is, again, the importance of why actually being on the ground comes into play. The importance of doing the research where you actually go and not just simply rely on secondhand information. So that all kind of gives you a bit of a feel and a bit of a flavor. Genesis chapter 3, when we fell, we were promised that we would have the knowledge of good and evil. And we have both. And when I was at Burning Man, I saw some good. I sure did. I saw people interacting in some really neat ways, especially right around my campsite. People helping each other out. We helped others out. Did I see evil? Yeah, absolutely. And I sure saw a worldview that was opposed to the Christian worldview. That's what's important.
Well, and like you said, you can find that very thing in any big town, any big city in America. There's good and evil. There's good and evil in everything every day when we go out there. It's there.
Right.
You know, so it's about being armed. It's about being ready for it. You know, and you can't be ready for it unless you do the research. I mean, I have people say to me, well, why do you look at mainstream media? Well, I have to look at mainstream media and I look at alternative media, because if I don't look at mainstream media, I don't know doing. I can't tell, you know, so I can't put blinders on. And
Right.
I appreciate the fact that you don't put blinders on and you go out there and do this research. Now, how would you compare Burning Man to Wicker Man in the ancient times?
Yeah, people have put that correlation together, that the two are connected. I'm not sure how true that is. Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man, says that, and there's different legends and almost different origin stories for how Burning Man started and reasons why. But it seems that the Wicker Man concept and Burning Man, there seems to be a correlation, you know, on the surface level. Was it ever intended to actually have that correlation? I don't know. Of course, Wicker Man in ancient times, you burned literally human beings within this sacrificial system. And here's the tragic part was at this burn that I was at, a young man, a 41-year-old man, raced past the fire marshals and dove into the flames and committed suicide in front of us all. I mean, he lived out Wicker Man, and that was horrible. I mean, really, that's tragic. And they've had fire marshals there for years and years because people have attempted it in the past. And so one guy this year got through. It's like moths to the flame, and it was horrible. It was really tragic.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, you're getting 70,000 people in one location. There's gonna like you said, there's gonna be good and bad. There's gonna be tragedy, and there's gonna be some great wins there. I mean, it's actually a wonderful opportunity for someone like you and other Christians to be at, to spread the word of the gospel in a subtle way, if you may. Coach Dave Daubenmire does very much the same thing. He went to the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but the Jugalos gatherings, and was preaching there and talking to people. That's where the real work of God happens. I mean, it's one thing to the Watchmen conference where almost everybody there is saved and they believe that they believe in the gospel and all that. So you're preaching to the choir there. It's another thing to go out there and get involved with people who are on the fence, and I appreciate that you do that. Now, let's move to another topic, which is, I mean, you're in Canada. Carl's in the rural areas of Canada in an undisclosed location. And by the way, posts some amazing photographs on his Facebook page. So if you're not following Carl on Facebook, do so. But here in the States, we have a statue that has been approved to be placed in, of all spots, in Washington, D.C., facing the White House. And it's a statue of a naked woman. Hey, what's going on there, Carl? What do you read into that?
I don't have to read anything. I know what's going on. And this is where the Burning Man culture actually has extended its hand further out than the Nevada desert. It's important for people to realize that Burning Man has approximately 80 regional events. And by regional events, that means events scattered across the US and Canada, burning events in Australia, South Africa. Israel has one of the largest and most energetic regional burns. And then you have a lot of non-official burn events, or events that have had inspiration through the Burning Man culture, who aren't necessarily affiliated in an official way. That's what this is that we're talking about. The statue being put at the mall is part of a festival. It started in 2015. It's held annually at the mall. It's called Carthasis at the Mall. And it is a non-official Burning Man event organized by Washington, D.C. and East Coast burners. The entire event comes out of the Burning Man culture. It is directly tied. It is a burn event for Washington, D.C. It's just a non-official regional event. And so, as I said, they started this in 2015. The first event happened, 3 years ago. 2 years ago, in 2016, they had, I believe, 1,000 people at the event. And now this year, they're looking to put one of the statues up and keep it up longer than they did the other previous years. And so that's what's going on. It is the burning culture putting their footprint in Washington, D.C. And they've been doing this since 2015.
Well, this culture is on the move, certainly. What do we do? There's people that are going to say that this is goddess worship, and what do we do scripturally for those that are afraid to combat this, I guess?
Right, that's a great question, Mike. And there is an element of goddess worship to it. When I was at Burning Man, yeah, we had all kinds of those elements in there. We had a lot of goddess worship. We had all kinds of shrines set up to different deities and for different spiritual experiences. And people do get frightened by it. They get frightened by this idea of having this in your neighborhood, or literally at the symbol of your national fabric. But we have to get over our fear. We are living in a post-Christian world, and that post-Christian world is no longer postmodern. We're not interested in modernity anymore either with its raw materialism. We're entering a new era, the era of re-enchantment. You could call it the era of a new form of paganism. That is the dominant worldview. Whether people recognize it or not, the dominant worldview is a small p pagan worldview, that man, nature, and God are all the same. And so that's going to come out. And the more this worldview embeds itself, the more bold it becomes and the more open it becomes. And that's one of the reasons why things like Burning Man have become so popular, why this event is taking place in Washington, D.C. How do we broach it? How do we take this on? We have two models. The first model is Jesus with the woman at the well. He goes to where she is. He asks provocative questions. He does so in a way that is loving, but brings the truth around as to who he is. We have to do the same. The other approach is to do what Paul did. Understand the worldview of those around you. He's not afraid of it, but he understands it. He understands it well enough he actually can quote their poets and philosophers. And then he uses that to leverage an opportunity to talk to them about Jesus Christ. That really is our approach. Our approach is no different than the approach of the New Testament. We just have to be willing to do it, Mike. That's the difference. We have to be willing to do it. And we have to be willing to do it in a way that is honest and respectful. Jesus was really, really hard on the religious leaders. Absolutely. In fact, you see him slamming the religious leaders of the day in the New Testament. But then when it came to the average person, the sinners, the ones that, we Christians sometimes go, I want nothing to do with those people. Jesus did, and he did so in a way that was loving and truthful and tactful and honest, and in a way that lifted them up out of their situation. He reserved his harsh criticisms for the religious leaders, and he extended love and forgiveness. He did that to the religious leaders too, but he did that in such an incredible way with the sinners around him. He took the time to go where they were.
Amen, Carl. That was very well said, and very. I think our audience really needed to hear that, because there's hope. There's hope within the Scripture. There's hope within the Bible, and of course, we all know in the end Jesus wins.
Right.
So it's I really appreciate what you're saying. Now, we had some exciting stuff going on with you. You've got a new book coming out, Game of Gods. I was blessed this morning, and I suggest all the rest of you pay attention to Carl's Facebook page, where he divulges the introduction to this book. Carl, tell us a little bit about the book and where you're going and what you hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been 2 years in the making. It's, as you said, called Game of Gods. The subtitle is The Temple of Man in the Age of Re-Enchantment. And Mike, going to Burning Man, basically was living out my subtitle, as the man this year had his own temple built around him. And the entire event was basically re-enchantment, oneness. And so the book explores this dominant theme throughout human history. And it's really a clash of two worldviews. The first worldview, the dominant worldview, and as I've said earlier, is this idea of oneness. And the biblical worldview is the worldview that says, no, God is separate, distinct, and completely different than creation. And then how do these things clash? How do they collide? And not just that, how does oneness then play its hand in politics? How does it play its hand in culture, in religion, in technology? So the first couple of chapters of the book fleshes out oneness so that you have an idea of what that looks like. And then the second part of the book is a series of chapters going through the history of modernity, postmodernism, and how really, Mike, we're at the end of postmodernism. We have entered the era of re-enchantment, or new paganism. The third part of the book goes into the biblical explanation, looking at the character of God, the nature of God, and then the fall of man and man's collective sin, as we find in the Tower of Babel. And then the second last part of the book is a series of literally mini books, 40 to 60 pages in length, each tackling very specific subjects: world order, oneness, and world order. And I bring in my experiences when I was at the UN Millennium Forum, other UN events, and other global governance conferences. And then we take a look at interfaithism. Again, boots on the ground research, tons and tons of footnotes, and I mean tons. 200 footnotes per chapter on some occasions. Detailed footnotes, not simply where I got the stuff, but what it means. And then we take a look at how this plays out in technology with transhumanism. I take your readers, your listeners, my readers, to the Global Future 2045 event that happened in New York City, where Ray Kurzweil and the transhumanist community really stepped up and announced how their worldview would change the world. Then after that's all done, I take you to the cultural side, and we examine things like Burning Man, transformational festivals, just this whole realm of we've got to the point, Mike, where we're celebrating oneness, and we're celebrating that worldview, which tells me it's far more entrenched than what people realize. I mean, way more entrenched. And so that's where we end in terms of the mini books. And the conclusion is taking a look at 3 responses. First, how the world will respond to this, which is increased re-enchantment. And then how does the church respond? Well, we respond in one of 2 ways. We either respond by becoming emergent, progressive, evolutionary, the way the world wants us to go, and we do see a side that does that, or we respond by how Jesus responded to the woman at the well, and how Paul responded at Mars Hill, and then what that looks like in a practical way as we interact with our neighbors and our family and our friends who have already adopted that worldview, sometimes, most times, without even knowing it.
Wow, I can hardly wait for the book to be available. When do you think the book will be out and available for people?
Well, I can hardly wait for it to come out too. I'm really hoping it'll be out. Well, first of all, I'm hoping it'll be done by the end of this year, and then, Lord willing, publicly available probably February or March. It's a long haul, especially when you're going into the detail and trying to piece together what are really complex issues and bring it together in a way that isn't reductionistic, but is honest to how it's playing out. And you're trying to do it in such a way that you want to be as accurate as possible. And so that means that for every footnote you see, there has been a ton of work behind every footnote, as I've cross-referenced a lot of back material that will never even show up in the book. But it was doing, it's doing your homework so that if you are called to the carpet on it and people do want to know, yeah, you've got that backing. You've got that body of research that's been done to demonstrate that this is indeed where we're going. And it's an old story, Mike. It's Genesis 3, just repackaged for today.
Amen. Now, folks, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that I believe 100% that Carl was chosen by God to do this work. And I can give you an example of that. I'm going to let Carl tell the story, and then we're going to have to say goodbye to Dave. When we were in North Las Vegas at Pastor Billy Crone's church doing a conference, we decided to do a side trip and go out to Area 51. We had L.A. Marzulli with us and Billy Crone. I mean, it was the perfect opportunity to go out there. And we, of course, we did not go out into Area 51. Some people were disappointed. They thought that they were going to open the gates and let us just drive out there in a tour bus and look around, which was not the case. But when Carl got onto the tour bus, he happened to open up one of the overhead bins. And Carl, what was it that you found in that overhead bin?
I found a nice big fat document, a FEMA document on how to handle the situation of an urban center being attacked by nuclear weapons. Fascinating, fascinating document. And I'm holding this in my hand, Mike, and I thought to myself, is this somebody from our tour group that's got this? I mean, has somebody got some inside scoop that they were able to snag this document? And they're doing this for research? No. Whoever was on the bus before us, or maybe 2 or 3 times before us, left something really interesting behind. And this, Mike, isn't the first time I've had stuff like this happen. Not even close. But yeah, I walked off that bus and I showed it to you. I showed it to your wife, and I asked, do you know who owns this document? Because smokes, here's a big fat FEMA document on how to deal with responses to weapons of mass destruction on your urban center.
Well, okay, so folks, now you can look at this as, oh, what a coincidence, but I want to tell you, the bus was completely full. There was not one empty seat in the bus. And right where Carl sat down, right above him in the overhead bin where he went to put his things, is this document. I'm not buying the coincidence in that. That's why I say this man's been chosen by God to expose these things and to talk to you about what's coming. Carl, congratulations on your book. We're looking forward to it. Now, how can people find you? How can they follow you? How can they get in touch with you?
The best way, Mike, is doing it through social media. My webpage is still down. Sorry. I'm hoping my webpage will be up as the book gets closer to completion. We're kind of trying to juggle two things at once with that. But definitely on Twitter and on Facebook, that's by far the easiest. Type in my name. Facebook, I also have a Forcing Change Facebook page, which is very similar to my own personal page. Forcing Change was a magazine that I edited for 9 years. And it's kind of the umbrella for my research work. And so people can just plug me in and check me out that way. Google my name. There's all kinds of stuff, good, bad, and ugly out there with my name on it. So go ahead, Google it, find me, and get a hold of me.
So, Carl, it's hard enough for me to pronounce your last name. Can you spell your last name for our listeners?
Absolutely. It's Teichrib, B as in boy, Teichrib. Yeah, that's a weird name. I know.
It's really, truly very easy to pronounce, very easy to spell, but that's not my forte. So, Carl, thank you so much for joining us today. It's just been a pleasure interviewing you and talking to you. What amazing insight and what truly fascinating work that you're doing. So thank you for joining us.
Hey, to God the glory.
Amen to that. So, folks, that's going to end it for today here on the Watchmen's Report. Again, visit hearthewatchmen.com. Check it out, see what's going on. As I mentioned, there's going to be some exciting new things, exciting new developments with that conference. You don't want to miss this one. As I always say as I close my shows, you can do absolutely anything with Jesus, except nothing at all. So get busy, get out there. Answer his call when he calls you. He does not call the qualified. He qualifies the call. God bless each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time here on the Watchmen's Report.